Aces dropped on another Monday here on the SDH Network. John here, Abe there. Abe there. I always get my directions mixed up as to where I'm supposed to point in these situations. So it's a Reaction Monday. Hi, John here, Abe there. And we'll go through what happened on the weekend and especially the extremely horribly late night that Abe and Garrett got for the post-game. So have you recovered, sir?
I did recover. I went to bed pretty much as soon as Leagues Cup ended last night. I was literally in bed watching on my phone, waiting to see a penalty kick shootout. That didn't happen. Yeah, it was late. And I think we've all been at this stage of our lives at some point. But I wasn't drunk, but I start slurring. I do start slurring my words when I get that tired and I'm still forced to be awake. So apologies to anyone who stayed up for the post-game show, because I was really tired, kind of out of it. But we battled through. It was all good.
Wow. Oh, wow. Full-time report after dark.
Yeah.
Woo. I mean, it was a late start. It was going up against LAG. You and I talked about it. We talked about it going into the week about, expectations and the grid and the Eastern Conference. And for 65 to 70 minutes, even, and I mean, we could probably cut this in half and say, we'll save the offense to one side. But for, 65, 70 minutes, the defense was hanging with the LA Galaxy out there in Carson, California.
Yeah, look, it's a three-headed monster in a big way for the Galaxy. It became a four-headed monster when Marco Royce stepped onto the pitch, and it's just so tough to deal with that. And you played them fair. You played them square for like you said, 60, 65 minutes. The subs get made. We bring in Miranchuk. Nice to see him. They bring in Marco Royce, and unfortunately, the multiple-time Bundesliga Player of the Year was the guy that made the difference. An assist on the first goal. Scored the second goal after a putback off a goose save. And so that was it. It was always going to be so difficult. And you had your opportunities early. You were offsides twice on a couple of goals that you were able to put in the back of the net. And obviously it was the right call. There's no debate about it, but they were called back. And so once you're into the later stages of the match and they can bring in a guy like Royce, who, look, obviously over the course of the season, he may not be coming off the bench. They're still working him in. Maybe he will. Maybe he will be a super sub. But, yeah, I mean, look, the Los Angeles Galaxy are the top team in the Western Conference. You had to go on the road after 3 weeks off and try and pair up with them. And I thought you performed well until you didn't. And it's kind of as simple as that. So a relatively good effort at the start, but obviously it fell apart. And you're dealing with a couple of unexpected situations too. Form has been what it's been, but Tristan Moyamba having to be a late scratch due to a hip injury, it kind of does adjust how you're able to play defensively in the midfield. And so that probably hurts you a little bit. But at the end of the day, as we've seen a couple of times, just not good enough in the final third. And then once the subs were made, you really didn't have much going forward at all. It was just defend for like 30 minutes.
You mentioned Alexei Miranchuk, and let's get right into it. I mean, he looked like he belonged, and you could see the artistry that the front office did with his time in Serie A. And so obviously, he gets his cup of coffee going up against LAG. But in the overall, what did you think about how he integrated in his debut and trying to sit there and it's like, okay, I need to find space. I need to do this. I need to do that. What did you think about Miranchuk in his debut?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough to tell because it was only a couple minutes before you kind of had to adjust your playing style and really get going forward as best you could. And that really didn't take either. I'm anxious to see him from the start of the match where he can play his way into it and not step into a kind of already developed match and the roles have been set and stuff like that. I'd like to see him play from the start. I mean, we all would, right? And we certainly understand why he came in when he did. I mean, honestly, I didn't think he'd be in as early as he was because when he came over from Italy, he was just ramping up in his preseason stage. I mean, this is not a guy that has been playing a quarter of a season or a half of a season like maybe we're used to with some South American players that would come in that have been in full form. So he's still ramping up. You take the fitness level, combine that with familiarity with the teammates and stuff like that. I think that Rob Valentino has had 3 training sessions with him there. So, I mean, that's not a ton. So to get 30-plus minutes out of him, I think is pretty good. Unfortunately, I just didn't get to see much from him. It's just so tough to gauge because from when he stepped on, you just weren't moving forward that much.
Yeah.
And obviously that has a lot to do with the Los Angeles Galaxy and how dangerous they could be. I do look forward to him against Charlotte, though, because Charlotte is very good defensively. They're not necessarily going to put you in a defend mindset. And so this game coming up, I think, is a real opportunity for him to really showcase what he can do in the midfield, what he can do to help out the attack. I think it's unfair to grade him based on what was going on against the LA Galaxy. I don't think he had much opportunity to show what he could do. I don't think he stood out in a bad way, but he also didn't really stand out in a, oh my God, I'm so excited about this guy for the rest of the season way either. And I understand why. That's all I'm trying to lay out there is it just the opportunity for that sort of showcase maybe wasn't there against the Galaxy. Certainly not once you had gone down a goal. But I think it will be there against Charlotte. I'm very excited to see if he does go from the start this coming week.
Yeah, and you mentioned basically what you can stare at from Alexei Miranchuk in a cup of coffee, basically. It's like there were a couple of offensive sets where you could see where his brain would go in certain situations like that. And to your point, I think that the matchup against Charlotte coming up is going to be one of those where I think that because of his size and his agility and his ability, he can cause problems for that back line for Charlotte. I think that the interesting matchup of, say, a Miranchuk and a Tim Ream, just to see how that integrates, I think that will be in a rivalry game with a new piece that is a part of this rivalry on both sides, to see how Alexei Miranchuk's imagination goes. To your point, I am looking forward to a matchup in Charlotte where you can make some inroads and come out with some points, because you know that you have to steal some points on the road here in the run-in to stay in the playoff picture.
Yeah, and that playoff picture is really tight right now. And unfortunately for Atlanta United, well, I guess, look, let's start here. Fortunately, right now, you're still in the 9 seed, right? And so you're still going to be in a play-in round if you can maintain position. Here's the unfortunate part. Where it's bunched up is not in front of you. No. It's bunched up behind you. And there's like 5 or 6 teams all within 2 points of this 9 spot.
Everybody is. It's the final, final 7 right now. 9 to the basement, 9 through 15. Atlanta's at 28 with 7 wins. That's your playoff bar. Philly, who had to go through Leagues Cup and has to play Columbus in the midweek, is right now 10th at 6 wins with a match in hand at 27. Montreal, who had an entirely different set of problems, going up against New England of all teams, is at 27 with 6 wins with 26 matches played. Then you've got New England at 26 with the win and 8 wins. So that puts them with 2 matches in hand in 12th. Then Chicago and Nashville have the same record, but Chicago is 3 goals to the better in goal difference. And then DC is 4 goals behind Chicago. So that's where we are right now, 9 to the basement, separated by that many points.
Well, and here's the difficult part for Atlanta United. Think about how many games they're playing against teams above them. We talk about Charlotte coming up. You got 2 against the New York Red Bulls, who are the 4 seed. You got a midweek game against Inter Miami. They're the 1 seed right now. You end the season with Orlando City. And so, yeah, you have some Montreal action. You have some Nashville action. But again, you're not that dissimilar from where they are right now. It is not an easy road in what is now an 8-game push for the playoffs. Had been 9 leading into it. But it is not easy. But I think the point is, you don't have room to mess around and drop points. And when I look at what is ahead of you, Toronto's kind of right there. Orlando City's kind of right there. I mean, you could go on a crazy run here and only jump 2 spots. I mean, I don't think that realistically you can get any higher than 7th based on the point. I mean, you're 10 points clear of Charlotte. And so even if you go on a crazy run, you're only jumping 2 spots. And so This is a situation where you cannot drop points on the road, and I don't care if these teams are above you right now in the standings. You just have no wiggle room. You have built up no maneuverability because of the teams, and quite frankly, and we've been pretty hesitant to do this, I think, to an extent. But now you really start to look at the rest of the matches and dole out, all right, we need this team to win there. Probably best if these two teams draw and split a point. I mean, you really start to look at what benefits you and what really hurts you in opposing team matches. And we've done that on a minimal scale. But now it's pretty much every team in the Eastern Conference, unless you're looking at the guys at the real top, that you try and figure out, all right, well, what do we really need in this match to benefit Atlanta United? So you've got to take care of your business. That's first and foremost. But then you do start scoreboard watching. And so let us do the math on that. I don't need the players figuring out at halftime, if they need to win by 3 goals in this game, or let us knuckleheads handle the math and probably screw it up anyways. But I mean, that's the point of the season where you start to look at it and you start to figure out 6 or 7 matches that all could impact positively or negatively Atlanta United along with yourselves. And I was hopeful that you could get 1 point in LA. Look, I've said that a couple of times this year, and you've come away with 3. The Columbus match, the Inter Miami Road match, and so there's always that maybe we'll surprise us for a 3rd straight time. That didn't happen, but yeah, you've now put yourselves in a position where I don't care that Charlotte is significantly ahead of you. Like, I still view Atlanta United and Charlotte as relatively even, and you've got to find points on the road. I mean, look, this is a revenge game too. Like, they came into your house and embarrassed you. That was the final game, if I remember, of Gonzalo Pineda's tenure. You let Liel Abada score twice, and that was it for Pineda. And so this is a little bit of a revenge match. It's also important in the run-up and in the standings. So I expect Atlanta United to really be in the right mindset, be in their best form come Saturday.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game, as always, batting leadoff here on a Reaction Monday here on the morning show on the SDH Network. Nothing like having to do projections and math with a quarter of your schedule remaining, or 8 over 36. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, about 9 to 36 is 25%. 8, so yeah, less than 20, like 22% of your schedule. Nothing like having to do math with that much of a runway in front of you, huh?
Well, the other thing, like, if we just translate it to baseball real quick, like, we're looking at what the Mets are doing behind the Braves and then a little bit what the Phillies are doing in front of the Braves. We're really only focusing on those 2 teams. But as you laid out and as we did, you're focusing on like 9 teams.
I know.
2 teams in front of you, plus yourselves, plus 6 teams behind you. There's so many teams still involved at this point. And look, that's great for the MLS. Like you're going to have, like you said, maybe it's not really starting quite this early in terms of like a bona fide push for the playoffs as they determine it. But like when you get to like 5 or 6 matches left, it is like, if you draw instead of win, you might drop 4 spots.
Yeah.
You might go from being in the playoffs at 9th to being the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's really going to be that crazy. I think you're going to see, hopefully not for Atlanta United, but I do think you're going to see a lot of flip-flopping. And like, there could be 5 weeks and 5 different teams in that 9 seed. And that's kind of crazy to think about. So again, it's not even that you're counting the points and figuring, it's that you're having to do it for so many different teams. It really is kind of crazy, but like, I guess that's kind of what the league was hoping for when they added the play-in round and a play-in field, postseason field that goes to 9 teams in each conference. I mean, it is really out there. And I mean, even in the Western Conference, right? It's not quite as crazy. But Austin's on 34. You got Dallas and Minnesota 1 point behind them. And so you're going to have 3 or 4 teams involved in that one too. But yeah, I can't remember an Eastern Conference that's got this many teams involved, and essentially no one has been eliminated.
6 separated by 5 from 6 to 11 in the Western Conference. So there's more playoff spots available in that crush at the bottom of the West, whereas everyone is chasing after the play-in round in the East, which is absolutely insane as we get ready for Charlotte on the road in a revenge game coming up this week on 92.9 The Game. So now that you have officially recovered, sir, the promo plans are going to be out there, but I know it's going to be a busy week in the lead-in. I know that you kind of watched a little bit of Leagues Cup to wrap up. So what did you think of the tournament that was created by Major League Soccer and Liga MX as we put a bow on everything?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Leagues Cup is cool, and like I'm a sucker. Like anything that's for a trophy, I'll get amped up for. And we, you know me, like I'll watch all sorts of nonsense if there's like a big prize at the end of the day. I thought it was intense. I thought the way that Leagues Cup played out yesterday, especially because, and by the way, I can't tell you how much more in favor I am of just going straight to shootout. Like, I just, especially if I'm hosting a post-game show and I'm trying to figure out my timing, and then it's like, 40 extra minutes. How exciting. But like in any level, like, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who are opposing this and would like to see the extra time played. Just go straight to shootouts, man. Like you had 90 minutes, just go straight to shootouts. It's so intense. It's so fun. I'm not one of those, like, I don't like to see a big game decided by a penalty shootout, a flip of the coin, or a guess which side. No, man, like go to shootouts. And I was expecting that yesterday, and I was starting to get excited for a shootout that would decide Leagues Cup. But lo and behold, that was not in the plans for Wilfred Nancy and Columbus. An incredible finish to this game. I guess we're allowed to spoil it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 2 goals in stoppage time. Cucho was outstanding. And it was just a super, super fun game. And it did feel like it meant something, right? Like that's always the concern when you get to these sorts of games. It is like, does it feel big? Does it feel important? To me, even as a spectator with no rooting interest, it did. It felt big. And I think that's what's important for the leagues that are involved, is to make it feel like something. And to me, it certainly did. I don't know about the third place matchup. I don't know how much fortitude I would have had to play in that one, but I know there's the benefits of winning that one as well with Champions Cup and all that stuff. But for the championship match last night, it felt important. And I thought it was an awesome atmosphere. Like obviously having it at home in Columbus, and then how it finished, and you saw the yellow powder and the flare, and the crowd went crazy. They went absolutely crazy. I think it's important for that as well. That cannot be a neutral site, bidded out championship game where it goes to a rotating. Having it at one of the homes of that team made that also aided in making it feel big. So I thought it was a great environment. Super fun match too. I mean, it really was super fun.
2 of the top teams in Major League Soccer chasing after an appetizer plate. And you get the grid going for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. How busy are you going to be this week leading into Charlotte, sir?
Busy, but most likely with the other type of football. Week 1 college football. I know. I don't know what to tell you. But we're going to be amped up. This is a huge game. I don't think we're going to undersell it, to be honest. I mean, if Atlanta United, with 8 games left, and we talked about it, they're going to make a push into the playoffs. This is a huge game. It's on the road, but it does feel like it's winnable. You're trying to get revenge, and you're clinging to life onto that 9 seed. And we're not going to undersell it. You have got to get a result in this game. At this point, there's so many teams breathing down your neck. There cannot be any slip at all. And so that starts in this one, because it does feel winnable. And you just don't want – I mean, you're where you need to be, and you cannot slide. You cannot count on jumping team. You got to get 3 points. We got to see Moranchuk from the start. I mean, this is desperate times right now. And so we're not going to hide that, man. These games mean something. They're very serious. If you want to be in the playoffs, the time is now. There's no more delay on any of this stuff. So we're excited. 6:30 for the pregame show. Obviously, Mike and Jason will have the call there shortly after 7:30. And it is going to be a big one in the Eastern Conference. There's no doubt about that.
At Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game. Very, very busy man. One of the busiest men in show business. As always, my friend, great to have you bat and lead off. You are our Ricky Henderson when it comes to the morning show here on STH. Thanks a lot, my friend. We'll catch up with you soon. We'll see you soon.
Always swinging for the fences, John. Appreciate it.
That was our catch up with Abe Gordon. Good morning, everybody. John here, you there. And we got stuff to talk about with Atlanta United. So we'll get into Atlanta United and LAG and what you thought. I know that some of you have already put your thoughts into the Twitch pitch. And that will be what is primary today. We've got a lot of news. We'll get into as much of it as we can. Transfers, those kinds of things. Transfer window still open for, I think, the final week is this week overseas. Sven Gordon Eriksson passed away this morning at the age of 76. And there are a lot of other little, there's some interesting pieces of news to kind of keep an eye on. One indirectly involving Thiago Almada that we'll get into. And it has to do, more than anything, it's got to do with John Textor. And so we'll let you know what's going on with that. Bart is slated to, and words from Lutz Pfannenstiel about player selection from outside the United States as to where they go inside the United States. And so Lutz Pfannenstiel had some quotes that were kind of directed toward, he was backing up his own city, or his own city, and he was kind of wagging his finger, since it is National Dog Day. He was wagging his finger at the stars that choose other places other than St. Louis. And so there were some pointed comments from him there. Bart set to join us at 10 o'clock, and there's a lot of reffing down here. There's a lot of reffing down here to get into. And some of it has to do with, I guess, what we're okay with in the Premier League. Apparently, it's all right to hog tie folks and not get a card. And apparently, the definition of handball has decided to go someplace. So there's that. Let's see. So it's the Bournemouth handball that we'll get into with Bart, with the hog tying by Joe Ellington that received nothing. Then there was a lot of red cards this weekend in USL Championship. And Danny Cruz from Lou City was in a match. Lou City was in a match with Hartford Athletic. And after the match was over, Danny Cruz let him have it with not just both barrels, but I mean, it's like he took his barrels, then he grabbed somebody off to the side and he opened up those barrels and he let the officials have it. Then he saw somebody off to the left who hadn't used their barrels yet. And then he decided to use theirs as well. So we have that sound from Danny Cruz. We've got sound from Andoni Iraola, the manager at Bournemouth, about what happened in their matchup. And then there was an incident, and I don't know if you saw it. But in Division I NCAA women's soccer, there was a moment between Rutgers and UMass that would have made the folks at AEW proud, because they had All In, I think, going at the same time in London. And so we've got that audio as well. So yeah, we hear from Andoni Iraola about Bournemouth. We find out about hog tying. We find out about USL Championship and the more philosophical discussion that I wanted to have with Bart about referees, officials in general, and the need for more. Because right now, going on in the United States, we have, and if I've missed anybody, let me know. We have Division I with Major League Soccer. We've got USL Championship, USL League One, the Super League, and all the colleges going on right now. We have all of that activity going on at once. And I think on Saturday there were 70 matches domestically. And that is, I think that was probably a conservative number. I don't know how deep that went down, but it's let's just say 70 matches. So you have 70 matches on a Saturday. the amount of folks that you need would be 140 minimum. But in Division 1, Division 2, you're talking about four-man crews, four individuals who make up crews. So you have all of these games that are going on. And I don't think we have enough officials to properly staff that many games across all the different divisions of the U.S. soccer pyramid. So I wanted to kind of get into the philosophical discussion about that as well with Bart when Bart joins us at the top of the hour to get through all of the reffing down here that happened on the weekend. And there was plenty of reffing down here to discuss on the weekend. Like I said, thoughts on Atlanta United and LAG. We'll go over the stats and go over, we mentioned it with Abe, where the race is right now. And Michael, to your point, Michael says, I don't think battling for a 9 seed's where this franchise needs to be. No, you're 100% correct. And if you ask them, they would say the same thing. But that is the current situation right now. That is where the chaos is. And I mean, in the East, as we discussed, in the Eastern Conference right now, it is beyond crazy. 7 teams separated by 2 points to get into the playoffs. Legitimately, coming into the season, I thought that the margins were going to be a little higher positionally inside the standings where the race was going to be. I was thinking it was going to be 3 through 9 that was going to be that stacked and not 9 through 15. But right now, as we talk about it, Miami once again, 17 wins, 56 points. They're 8 points clear. Cincinnati, who's having problems at the back, and they have there was a stat about giving up a boatload of goals in certain situations, and they had, I think they had man advantage in the last 4 matches that they had man advantage. I'm trying to remember the stat. The last 4 matches they had man advantage, I think they only came away with 1 point. But yeah, so the last 4 matches that Cincinnati has had a man advantage, they have not taken advantage of that man advantage. So there you go. Using the same word twice quickly. FC Cincinnati had an opportunity on the weekend, didn't take advantage of it. Not the first time that has or hasn't happened. 8 points behind, and they are in second place in the Eastern Conference. Columbus, by the way, has 3 matches in hand. They take care of business. They're pushing Miami. But one of those matches is in the midweek that they have to make up against Philadelphia because of Leagues Cup weekend. And so Wednesday, we keep an eye on Columbus and Philly. If Columbus takes care of business, once again, they're only 2 points out of second, still with 2 matches in hand. If they win out, right now, Columbus would be at 52 points. If Columbus wins out, they're at 52 points. They're 4 points behind Miami with, as of, let's just say right now, eight matches to go to even things up. My money's on Columbus. And of course, I say that, and you know me and my record of any kind of selection of any kind of choosing. But yeah, you don't want me to pick for you. But considering what we are seeing with Columbus, right now my money's on Crew. My money is on Crew. And I think that it is, if we haven't done it yet, I think that we need to tip our hat to Wilfred Nancy and what he has done in Columbus. He has assembled a roster that goes with his game plan, and it is one of the strongest runs we've seen in recent memory in Major League Soccer. And all I'm going to say is this. If the Crew front office hadn't figured this out, that will end up being the notion that someone overseas will be knocking on Columbus's door to get Wilfred Nancy to coach a franchise on the other side of the Atlantic. Rightfully so. And I'm checking Wilfred Nancy's contract situation. But if you are a club, 2024, they agreed to a contract extension with Tim Bezbatchenko announced today, contract extension. Yeah, okay, cool. It just mentions contract extension, does not mention how long. Okay. So he signed a contract extension this year. But once again, how long, we don't know. So with everything that they have done in Columbus, Columbus is probably going to get a fair chunk of change when someone knocks on their door and says, hey, we want to talk to your coach. But with what Wilfred Nancy has done, with the talent that has been assembled, and I'm talking outside the big guns up top. I'm talking outside Rossi and C-Ram and Cucho Hernandez. I'm talking beside that. I mean, you look at the look at the starting 11 that was assembled, and this is a starting 11 that he's pretty much rolled all the way through. He has taken that competition and any competition that's in front of him, and he's just rolled over that starting lineup, and that's who it's been. Save a couple of different dudes. The 5-3-2, 4-2-4, whatever. You're looking at Max Arfston, Mo Farsi, Steven Moreira, Rudy Camacho, Malte Amundsen, Sean Zawadzki. And unless you were hardcore going in, like I said, that's outside of Rossi, C-Ram, Cucho, and Driver. That's outside of those four. And he had, Nick Hagan in net. So he has taken guys that have gotten used to his system, put them in, and just rolled them over. A couple days later, you're playing, all right, same dudes. A couple days later, you're playing, same dudes. Doesn't matter the competition. Doesn't matter if it's Major League Soccer. Doesn't matter if it's Leagues Cup. Schulte was on the bench because Hagan became the Leagues Cup keeper. But on the bench, Yaya Boa, who we've seen with Columbus Crew 2, developed through their system. Jason Russell Rowe, who at one point was supposed to be traded for other resources. Then you end up with Taha Habrun on the bench, another one of the Crew 2ers. Shaburko, who has come in defense and done really well. Alexander Matan, who has found a bit of a renaissance. DeJuan Jones, who was traded from New England. I mean, and that trade put some folks on their heels. A.Z. Jackson, who we saw with Crew 2, as he was traded from St. Louis City. So, I mean, for me, I got to tip my hat to Wilfred Nancy. If I haven't already, I am today. Jason Russell Rowe scores at 90 plus 4. Cucho scored at 90 plus 2. It was 1-1. Cucho scored in the 45th, 1-0 at the break. The most handsome man in Major League Soccer got his first goal in the 57th, and then 2 goals in 2 minutes at 90 plus. Just when you're thinking like, Abe, it's going to go to PKs, no. But Columbus ends up with the shrimp cocktail appetizer plate. That's what it looks like. Leagues Cup trophy goes to Columbus. They get the win. But yeah, tip your hat to Wilfred Nancy, and do not be surprised if Columbus asks for the moon, the stars, and anything else that they can try and grab for the for Leagues Cup and for Columbus. So Columbus gets another trophy. They reinforce their position getting into the CCC, the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and LAFC goes in and the Rapids go in after beating Philadelphia in PKs. Zach Steffen came up big in the penalty kick shootout, saving 2. And so you end up with Colorado Rapids being team number 3 out of Leagues Cup to go into the Triple C next year. And we talked about it once again with Chris Armas. If Chris Armas doesn't get any consideration for Coach of the Year in Major League Soccer, then there are issues there. So Chris Armas comes in to Colorado. They invest a little bit. Chris Armas has a system in place. You bring in Georgi Mihailovic, and that's what you end up with right now with Colorado making a run in Leagues Cup, and they get into the Triple C next year. So that's what you're staring at with Leagues Cup. And it is now back to league play for the remainder of the season. So the long national television program known as Leagues Cup has ended its 2024 episodes. And now it is the race to get all your matches in and figure out what's going on in the playoff picture. Obviously, we talked about it with Abe. I'm kind of skipping over opening kickoff. I haven't even hit opening kickoff yet. That's what happens when you bat leadoff with Abe. Right now with Atlanta United, obviously we talked about the crush that's the Eastern Conference. And once again, the story that we discuss is if you get to the chances that are there early, you are clinical, you finish them, then you're having possibly different discussions. Like I said, I know that we've talked about that before. And Xande Silva was offside a couple of times, and if he had been onside once again into the back of the net, probably talking about different things. But on the day, I think that once again, you look at the debut of Alexei Miranchuk. He comes in, he gives you his minutes. And I think that it was a small, for a Department of Redundancy department, a small microcosm of what to expect from him. You got to see the imagination a little bit. You got to see how he processes on a couple of possessions. And, you're looking at the future with Alexei Miranchuk as a part of it. And, is he as an attacking midfielder, does he end up in that attacking midfield space? Does he end up, drifting out to the left like we've seen in the past with Thiago Almada at times? As he becomes more comfortable with what we're doing, when you talk about the offense with Atlanta United, does Saba go to the left? Do you have Luke Brennan come in on the right-hand side? And Alexei Miranchuk as your attacking mid? Remains to be seen. Probably a matchup at a time as to what those answers are. But, I think, you got to see a handful of minutes with Miranchuk. You got to see kind of how his brain works after, 3 sessions? Numbers courtesy of SofaScore. Brad, obviously, with the penalty save at 8.3 on the day. And with Brad, 6 saves, goals prevented, 2.12. Had 1 high claim, 5 saves inside the box. Obviously, the 1 penalty. 75% passing, 36 touches, 11 of 17 on long balls, and 1 clearance for Brad. So that was Brad on the day. And so you end up with that with Brad. Your back line, Pedro Amador on the left-hand side. Your back 4, Amador, Derek Williams, Stian Gregerson, and Brooks Lennon. I know that on goal number 2, Brad parries it off to his left, and obviously both Gregerson and Williams slow to react, and then the ball goes in the back of the net for goal number 2. So you see Brad Perry and then the 2 defenders for Atlanta United. They're slow to react, and once again, LA puts it in, and that was the second goal of the night. Bart Sleesh, north of a 7. Dak McCarty, a 6.5. Dax and Jay Fortune getting the start in the midfield because of the hip injury for Tristan Muyumba that was diagnosed on Friday. Jay Fortune, once again, putting in a great shift as he continues to grow. 7.1 according to SofaScore. He had the one opportunity at XG at 0.14. Expected assists 0.24. 47 touches, 74% in his passing. One long ball completed and one shot off target, one shot blocked. Had his one dribble. Won 4 of 7 duels on the ground. Fouled once. Had an interception and 2 total tackles as well. So another complete game for Jay Fortune. Then you end up with Shande on the left, Jamal up top, Saba on the right. Shande actually graded higher than both Jamal and Saba, even with the 2 offside calls that were attached on the goal opportunity. Shande, 72 minutes, registered in XG and XA, 38 touches, 84% passing, 21 of 25, had 5 key passes on the day. 1 long ball, 1 shot on target, 2 for 2 on the dribble, 3 for 8 on ground duels, fouled once. He had the 1 offside, 1 interception, 1 tackle, 2 dribbles passed. Then Jamal up top, 7.1 compared to 7.3. 72 minutes before he was subbed, and he registered the 1 shot on target, 22 touches, and he was only 6 of 8 passing on the day. 5 of 6 on ground duels, 2 for 3 on the ground, so total of 7 of 9 in duels. Was fouled twice. Jamal had 2 offsides called, 1 clearance, 1 interception, 2 total tackles, and a dribble passed. And then Saba up top on the right-hand side had 81 minutes, registered in XG and XA, 38 touches, 12 of 19 passing at 63%. Then you end up with 5 shots for Saba, and he had 1 clearance, 1 pick, and 1 dribble passed. And so that's the starters numbers for Atlanta United going up against LAG. Jared Smith joining us on a Monday. What's up, Jared?
It's Monday.
Yes, it is.
It
is. It is a reaction Monday, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a late night.
Yeah.
You played really well for 65-ish to 70 minutes.
Yeah.
Against a team that's leading the West.
Mm-hmm.
And then you didn't.
Yeah.
And you won't be the last team that they do that to this year.
Yeah.
But it's disappointing because you left chances on the field in the first half. You made 2 goals that are called back correctly for offside. The second one I think aggravated me more because Shande kind of just stood there offside, kind of like a bump on a log.
Yep.
Yeah, wasn't my favorite thing he's done.
Yeah.
When I saw the replay, I'm like, get back on side.
Yes.
Get back on side.
Get back on side, please. Yes, please.
And he did not.
No.
It's a good finish, but you left goals there. You had other chances that you did not convert early in the game. You probably should have been leading at the halfway point because you created chances. You were really efficient and structured in playing out and playing on the counter in the first half. And then when things really got stressed out in the second half, which those games getting open as hell makes for a fun watch, but then you had mistakes.
Yep.
And when the game gets stretched out like that and you don't put goals away, other teams will. The first one's a really nice finish from Ricky, which don't call him Ricky, like he's driving the number 10 Tide car in the '97 Winston Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really beautiful finish. And then the Royce one kind of annoyed me because it's a really good save from Brad.
Yeah.
It's a great ball to Royce. Great save from Brad. Once again, everyone just kind of stand there like bumps on logs. And then it's just tapped in. And you can't have it.
Yep.
No one closes down afterward. Brad's not able to turn it away. Falls right to Marco Royce, and he puts it away. And yeah, that's all she wrote. Man, like LA tilted the field on you in the second half. They did a good job of it. Greg Vanny is no slouch as a manager. But when you go on the road, and we talked about this with the twos in the past, when you go on the road and you are not the favorite and you get those opportunities, you have to take them.
Yep.
You know, in the first 10 minutes, when Shonda's coming down the left-hand side, and he's got Jamal where he can play him through, or he can play a square ball to Saba, and he shoots, and he just puts it right into the breadbasket of the keeper.
Yep.
You can't. If you're gonna shoot, if you're gonna shoot that ball, you need to pick out a spot, or you need to lay it off to somebody for an even higher quality chance. I have no problem with guys pulling up and shooting at times, especially in the second half when it felt like they just were not doing that. Just have a pop, guys. Somebody just have a go. But if you're going to be in that situation where it's full on break and defenders are like running backwards on their heels, and you don't pull up like that, when you got options, you gotta pick up a spot.
Yep.
But when you do not finish chances on the road like that, you don't win games. And credit LA because like they were not good the first half. Marco Royce comes on, tilts the field, and they barely got the ball away from Moranchuk's foot for 10 minutes. Moranchuk was having problems there getting the ball, and then when he did, I mean, he was really good on the ball. That left footing curling shot might still be curling.
Yes.
That hit the crossbar. That was very pretty. Yeah, man. So Emilio. So yeah, let's talk about these three because they're actually a really interesting case study. I wouldn't say Austin has turned it around. Josh Wolf was and still is, I think, on the hot seat. They are unnervingly inconsistent.
Yep.
Austin is still really weird. They're still very inconsistent. They've been they overachieved in the 1 year they made the Western Conference Final. Like that was fun. Sebastian Josi, still a fun player. Last year was awful. This year has been wildly inconsistent. Like they'll do what they did with a victory in Nashville, and then they'll go out and lose a game at home that they have no business losing.
Yeah, they'll lose a game at home to Minnesota. You know.
Yeah, they're just inconsistent. I would say they turned it around. Colorado, I am happy for Colorado because I screamed in the preseason. If you're going to give this to Chris Armas, you make it his project.
Mm-hmm.
Give him time, give him pieces, and they did that. Like, you have ownership who actually spent in Colorado. Like, you don't have them. Colorado's been good though, but they all bought into his system. Looking at you, Toronto, for not buying into his system.
Yeah,
and they've been good, man. LAG is just.
You dropped $19 million on Paintsel and Peck to help out Ricky Pouge, and then somehow you found some. Yeah, I know. And so it's like, all right, this is how it's going to be. We're going to have the pedal down, and you got to try and catch us because Paintsel runs at 900 miles an hour, and
Paintsel is like a walking orange card, and I kind of adore it.
Yeah,
he runs in one mode, and that mode is aggrieved. LA was interesting though in that, like, go back to the last couple of years, LA will take these big wild swings, and they've been missing on them. This year they hit, but they've been swinging big for a while and been missing. This year they hit. I give them credit for hitting.
Yeah.
Because it has not been consistent swing and a hit.
No.
But you had Greg Vanny there, who is a very well-regarded manager and who is very well respected.
And his back was against the wall coming into this year.
But he wasn't ever. Now, for Atlanta, I think, to make these comparisons, like you're looking for Atlanta to be that team next year with the idea of freeing up U22 spots, bringing in a new manager, most likely. I know Amelia and I were talking about this earlier. Garth was on the pregame show, talking about the manager, and I think my op-ed on this is that he is being very cordial and very fair to Rob by talking about Rob as a candidate for the next manager. Because like we talked about, you didn't hand him the full deck, you handed Gonzo. Like Rob took over, he didn't have a DP striker in tow. he had Almada for a bit, but it's not the same weaponry.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of everybody has been shook. I swear to God, everyone has been shook since the Philadelphia game, where you blew a 2-0 lead at home.
Yeah.
I I don't know the odds of Rob getting that gig, but I think the way Garth is going to talk about it, and I think the way he will keep talking about it, is that they're gonna fill the spot, whether it's with Rob or somebody else, because you're not just going to say, "Yeah, we're going to bring in somebody from the outside. Rob's just here
Yeah,
to
because
take up space."
yeah,
because you're going to show him more respect than that,
yeah,
even if he's not the guy.
yeah. If you lay it out where you're throwing dirt on the interim manager and publicly not giving him a chance to show that he's worthy of the gig under whatever parameters you're looking at, then there's part of that guy that's going to say, "Well, what's the point?" And so why should I give 100% if they're going to throw dirt on me?
And Rob's been a steward of the club.
Uh-huh.
He's been an assistant here since Frank was here, and has been a part of multiple staffs in the sense that, like, he was here when Frank was here.
Mm-hmm.
When Heinze came in, he stayed on as part of that staff. He was respected enough to stay on as part of that staff. Took over the interim there, stayed on as part of Garth's staff for continuity, and because he was respected. Whether or not he does anything here going forward, or whether or not it's somewhere else, this is his interview in action. So I think when they talk manager, I don't want to get too hung up on, like, he's still talking about Rob. He's still talking about Rob. Yes, he is, because he's going to give him the respect of consideration. You're not just going to brush him off to the side, even if they have decided behind closed doors. We don't know that they have, but even if they've decided behind closed doors that he is not going to be the guy, and they're going to get somebody else, they're going to talk publicly in a way that is respectful to Rob. And they should.
Yeah.
Because he is, like I said, he has been a steward for the club. And he has done what he's been asked for the club in difficult situations before and now. Like, yeah, it's a tough situation to take over this club right now, because you always are going to have expectations, even at the worst of times. And there's heavy expectations on everybody. Heavy expectations on scouting, coaching, fitness team, hell, even the second team with the kids.
Yep.
And we're seeing right now, you're seeing decisions have to get made with how you play this out. So let's run this scenario out. Because Tristan William Bob banged up, allegedly, possibly, maybe.
Yep.
Jay Fortune was outstanding Saturday.
Yeah.
Tyler and I have talked about it before. Like, for me, Tristan is the odd man out right now.
Mm-hmm.
That can change. These are things that can change. Nothing is set into obsidian. Right now, for me, he's the odd man out. If you're managing for your job, if you're managing in a interview capacity, not just for Atlanta, but for anyone else, I think it'd be really tempting to go with the veteran guys who can provide stability. But at the same time, I think there's also pressure to see what you can get from your home grounds.
Yep.
Because Jay Fortune has been getting better and better and better and better and better and better in games.
Yep.
Maybe he complements Sleesh better. Maybe Tristan's ready to go next week, and maybe you run Tristan and Sleesh out there, or Tristan and Jay, or you run it back the exact same way. Because when Miranchuk is healthy and when Miranchuk is ready to go, somebody's got to drop out of that midfield. You've been running Bartok, Jay, Tristan, Dax in some capacity, 3 of the 4 of them. One of them is going to drop for your number 10. Who's it going to be? And who wants to earn those minutes starting, and who wants to come off the bench?
Yeah.
How do you rotate those situations? I will be very interested to see how that goes. And the same thing goes for me personally on the wing, where Shande hasn't been what you needed him to be this year outside of a couple stretches. And at one point, do you throw it to somebody else, like a Luke Brennan? I know Tyler Wolf was the winger off the bench along with Edwin. I'm not going to lie, my eyebrows went up a bit just because I'm very high on Luke Brennan and what he has given you with the first team. But again, if you're managing for your future, whether it is here or somewhere else, and you're kind of doing a live interview in the moment, then yeah, you might be more inclined to go with more veteran guys.
Yep. We've cleared the top of the hour, so that means it is time to bring in Bart Keeler to kick off hour number 2 from the Soccer for USPOD. And Bart, I had mentioned in the pre-flight that
for some reason it looked like Bart just kind of levitated into the screen. I don't know why.
Yeah, he did because he does that. He levitates. He is a master levitator. We were going to do a lot of reffing down here. Before we get into reffing down here, is there anything from a national team point of view, men's, women's, Megan Rapinoe getting jerseys retired, to put an umbrella on national team stuff? What's going on in a national team footprint right now? Anything?
I think it just needs to be said that Gotham brought on 2 gold medalists as a sub in their game this past weekend. And that is a flex that I don't think many teams in the world could ever do. It also helps that when we have like half the U.S. women's national team, you do that.
Yeah.
It's not like they just won a title.
Right. Yeah. Both gold medal and Gotham reigning champs.
I think that time Alex Krieger won the breakup.
That's I think that's it from the women's side. Alyssa Thompson scored for the first time this year, and she broke her blockade with 2 goals, so that's awesome. Christian Pulisic gets a goal. Tyler Adams, as we'll discuss, Bournemouth soon. Still not seen, heard nothing, but so just business as usual on the men's side, unfortunately.
Yes. So we'll get into all of that. So
still no Potch.
No, and this was a question that came up.
Tanner Tessman made a move. He's at Lyon now.
That's right. Tanner Tessman to Lyon.
Well,
I'm just glad he's out of Venezia. I don't think it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be actually good for him. I'm just glad he's out of Venezia.
Well, Celtic wanted him up in Scotland, and I don't know how much they were willing to spend, but I know they wanted to bring him up there. But yeah, I think it's better than Venezia as well.
Yeah,
Venezia's a cool club. It's a fun hip club, but
yeah, they got great gear except for this last jersey release.
There are worse places in the world you could live.
True.
There are, but as far as development, we haven't really seen it with him or Lucio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad he's getting a move. Hopefully that either he can develop at Lyon or he can develop elsewhere. I actually would have liked the Celtic move for him. I think that would have been cool. I'd like to see a former football player go head to head in the with some of the men in the Scottish Premier League.
Yes. Well, speaking of which, I just got my email from West Brom, and apparently they are pleased to confirm the club has completed the signing of midfielder Matt O'Reilly from Celtic for an undisclosed fee. So,
Atalanta dropped the ball on this one. The structure on this was that when Moranchuk was coming to Atlanta, they were discussing with Matt. They made like 4 or 5 bids for Matt O'Reilly, who had no business not being on the Danish Euro squad, by the way. It's been outstanding. But yeah, they kept trying to lowball Celtic after like 4 or 5 bids of that. I think Celtic blocked their number and just went down to England and said, you know what, just give us the 25 as add-ons and we'll just call it a day.
Yes. So that was where we were with that particular move. Full disclosure, I got the email and it said embargoed 3 p.m. And I'm trying to sit here and do math. And I'm like, okay, embargoed 3 p.m., 1500 minus 5, 10 o'clock. We cleared 10 o'clock, so it was okay to say it. All right. So, Bart, I have tape to go with reffing down here today.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of incidents, and I wanted to discuss them with you. We'll get into the philosophical discussion, which I guess means we'll play Danny Cruz second. We'll start with Bournemouth. And there were two incidents, and Alex made some comments early on in the Twitch pitch about them. So the 1-1, it's 1-1 late, and I probably should have pulled the play-by-play instead of just the Iraola sound after the match. 1-1 late, and it looks like off a corner, Bournemouth gets a game winner.
Mm-hmm.
But then it goes to VAR,
Mm-hmm.
and VAR was picking up their Ticonderoga number 2 pencil, and they said, not so fast, my friend, with Dango Ouattara, checked for a possible handball, and the goal was disallowed.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at that particular incident, please explain to the planet once again this year, when it comes to the jersey and the arm, what it constitutes a handball and how far down the arm we go in this situation.
Right. So I think the first thing you have to understand when you're talking about this specific moment,
right,
is the one thing you are absolutely not allowed to do in this sport is score with any part of your hand or arm. That you are going to be more scrutinous.
Hey, it sounds good to me. It's a word.
You're going to be more scrutinous of a goal when it comes to a handball because you're not allowed to do that, right? We know this. That's literally the whole point of the sport. That is the thing that differentiates us from other footballs, is that we actually do play with our feet and not our hands, whereas all the other footballs, for some reason, use their hands. And so with that, you have to look at this and go, okay, if the jersey is not necessarily the boundary. I think that needs to be said. It is a good, easy way to kind of look at it and go, yeah, okay, the jersey's there. That's about the edge of the armpit, right? But we look at the armpit. So that could be here. It could be here. It's the armpit, right? We look at it through that lens. Sometimes you can use the jersey sleeve as a boundary. Sometimes you can't, because every jersey manufacturer makes their sleeves slightly different, and every player has a slightly different jersey size. I think that this was eventually the right call, and I'm really sorry, Bournemouth fans, but I think it looks like it hits at that boundary. Literally, it looked like it hit right at that boundary on his sleeve. Congrats on having a massive bicep strong enough to put that ball into the goal. But it did look like it was a handball.
Okay.
And when I watched it live, I was like, where was the handball? And then you watch it back and go, oh, because he didn't actually hit it with his head. And that's the other thing, is he clearly did not hit it with his head. And it wasn't on his shoulder. It definitely was somewhere in between shoulder and elbow. And it looked like it hit probably on that boundary line, which in our case here means it's a handball. And unfortunately, the goal is disallowed.
Yes. So here is Andoni Iraola, the manager for Bournemouth, after the match, doing his spleen venting for about 90 seconds.
Downey, we'll start with where the game finished. There's plenty of talking points at the end. What was your view of how the game finished?
I think it's unfair for the players, because now with the performance they had, we are just going to talk about the disallowed goal. No? I think it's so decisive in the game, the goal. It's so obvious, the mistake, that we cannot focus in the other things. I think it's they take us another 2 points. I don't understand, because the referee cannot do anything else. He gives the goal. He doesn't even have the chance to watch it in the images, in the TV, in the VAR. They will say it's something factual after seeing the play. Is if everyone thinks it's not a handball, if the ball goes especially so strong after hitting the shoulder, it doesn't touch the skin of Dango. The only chance if you stop the ball earlier or later, so you can say, no, it's touching the skin. No, it's not touching the skin. You see it live, it's not touching the skin. He scores with the, and the books they give us at the beginning of the season is clear. They put a horizontal line here saying, no, they disallow us the goals against Nottingham Forest, because they take the last part of the shoulder of Lewis Cook and they put the lines, and you have to believe because they put the lines, and you say, okay, we have to accept because you can score a goal with the shoulder. This is what happened today, and it's the same shoulder the past week, and this week is the same shoulder, and it's frustration, but nobody will remember in 2 weeks. I will have 2 points less. They will ask me, no, you haven't won in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, if we don't win difficult games. And nothing happens. Nothing happens.
So obviously, and Iraola is absolutely correct. In 2 weeks, unless we have another incident, no one's going to remember this incident, and they're going to sit there and go, yeah, you've lost 3 in a row. What's wrong? I mean, and that's the way it is in the Premier League. By the way, Dale Johnson at the 4 Letter says that this was only the 9th game as VAR for Tim Robinson, who is a recent appointment to the Premier League list. In those previous 8 matches, he had only 1 error to his name, the failure to award a penalty to Nottingham Forest against West Ham back in February. So there you go.
I just don't think this is – I think it's fair to say this is not a clear and obvious error.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was because there was no – I mean, there wasn't a header, right? And so I think that would be that. It didn't hit his shoulder. So from there, it's clear and obvious it did not hit a truly playable part of the ball, right? It's not obvious that it hit a playable part of the body. And to Alex's point, I think he's confusing the guidelines for the actual rule. And it doesn't touch a skin. Well, one, I don't think that's necessarily cut and dry either. I don't think you can definitively say it doesn't touch a skin. Again, it seems like it hits the bottom of the shirt sleeve, which, by that point, it probably could touch skin because, things are malleable. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
And then further, again, it's not just the shirt sleeve. That's just a good way for us to kind of look at things through a framework. It's not necessarily the actual boundary line. And I know that confuses some people, but that just is what it is. It looks like to me it hits below the armpit, which doesn't necessarily mean the skin, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that's how they explained it to the Premier League managers, and so that's where he is confused. That said, you cannot score with your arm, you cannot score with your hand, and so when we have a goal that is scored by arm or hand, we're going to be more scrutinous.
Well, according to Alex, Screwdelicious. Yeah, I think that Screwdelicious that might be another term that we use. So
Screwdelicious definition makes it boys.
See. Yeah, see?
Got Fergie going on in here now.
Screwdelicious definition. Yeah, see, this is why we do this, so we can expand our vocabulary and we can all become smarter. Incident number 2 on tape, and we're gonna hear from Danny Cruz, the head coach at Lou City. In the USL Championship, and I went back to get the full grid. In USL Championship this past weekend, you end up with a red card in FC Tulsa, Detroit City. You end up with a red card, Lou City and Hartford Athletic. So that's 2 matches. You end up with red cards for both Charleston and Orange County. And it was 2-0 Orange County at the time of their red card. By the time it was done, you end up with a red card on each team. You finish 10-10. Charleston wins 6-0. So that's 4 reds. You end up with a red card in New Mexico United and Colorado Springs Switchback. So that's 5. Then you end up with a red card, Monterey Bay and El Paso Locomotive. So that's 6 red cards in 5 matches this past weekend in USL Championship. Now, in the Lou City match, Danny Cruz, afterward, he ended up getting a 2-1 loss to Hartford. So Danny Cruz, less than happy about what happened in the match. So here's what Danny Cruz said post-match after the game, and there's some pretty damning stuff in here. It's 2 sound bites pushed together by our friends at WDRB TV in Louisville. It's about 2 minutes and 19 seconds. So here's what Danny Cruz said with 2 questions in his post-match press conference.
Yeah, I will say I was extremely proud of the mentality of the group, the work rate. It's never easy to be down a man for 60 minutes. Obviously, I felt certainly that the level tonight from the referee crew was below the level of expectation at the professional league. And this for me is a huge problem. I'll tell you, you had a referee tell Adrian Perez to fuck off. I got sent off for literally clapping and telling Aiden that he'd done well to earn the foul in the corner. I didn't say a word to the fourth official until the 20th minute, 22nd minute to be exact, and got officially warned. And this is not a standard that I think is acceptable at our level. At the end of the day, I don't ever talk about the referees in these press conferences. I don't ever want there to be excuses for a poor result. But I did feel that my group left everything they could on the field, and they were hard done by tonight. There is a process where we go through the report. I've had really good dialogue with Pro over the last few weeks. I have felt that there's been improvement in certain areas, but again, the fourth official tonight, 20 minutes into the game, I had not said one word to him, and I get a warning after asking him about a call, and all that I was looking for was communication on what the call was, there was a clear penalty in the first half. I've already looked back at it 3 times, but it seemed that our players couldn't get a call tonight. And for the AR2 to tell a player to fuck off, I have a real problem with that. And we're going to file the report. We're going to go through Pro. We're going to go through the league, see what comes of it. But ultimately, I don't believe that the crew was up to the standard that it needed to be at a level like ours.
So, Jarrett, for those that may not know about Danny Cruz, could you give a bit of an observational bio blast about Danny Cruz and Lou City and what he's been able to do, and personality-wise, how Danny Cruz operates from what you've seen over time from our coverage of USL Championship?
So that's pretty much how Danny Cruz operates right there. Danny Cruz is, I think. So what's fascinating to me is that, I think the James O'Connor hire from Orlando City from Lou City back in 2018, after Jason Christ.
Yeah.
I think that did damage to some people's perception of having a manager make that jump. But Danny Cruz came in and took over Lou City as a former player, pretty young, after they had won a title, and the roster, manager left after they had won a title with an older roster. Came in, made some modifications to the style and the game model, but turned the roster over to younger style and adapted what he had to the players that he had, and has continued to consistently make the playoffs and challenge for trophies and been really, really good. Danny Cruz is one of my favorite managers in lower division United States soccer, and I will hear no slander personally. But yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to get from him. Guy's still pretty young, played not that long ago, and I think guys like that will go to bat very, very consistently for their players, for their guys. And yeah, if all of the allegations are what they are, if they are all true, I don't blame him for being upset. If because we are hearing one side of the story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that it's very easy for us to be angry after a game with officials, but I think we also do have to at times remind ourselves that when a manager gets on the podium and just starts cutting a promo, we are getting a side of the story.
Yes.
We are not privy to the post-match report that is written up by the head official or any comments or any of that sort of thing, unless, of course, you or Jeff Cameron decide to storm into the referee's locker room after the game, only get suspended for a couple of games, and then bitch and moan your way into a lower suspension.
Yeah, you could have been Matt Miazga, yes, absolutely.
Or Matt Miazga. I'm sorry, it was Matt Miazga.
Well, it could have been either one of those guys, to be quite honest.
It really could have been. Dude, I'm still pissed that like Matt Miazga was not given like a bigger like frying pan over the head from the league on that. Also, shout out to Cincinnati fans for belly aching all week about the referees in Miami because they lost 2-0 to Miami in a game where Miami got a red card.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And you're still bitching about the officials.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Like you are Steph Curry's wife.
Yeah, so so Bart, you got a lot to talk about here. First off, after Danny Cruz, we'll get into Miami and Cincinnati since Jarrett brought that up. Well, that'll be next. Let me write it down so I don't forget. So Danny Cruz, obviously cutting a promo like that after a match. Initial thoughts, and I'm sitting here and I'm scrubbing the league highlights trying to find out. All we see is the red card in the 29th minute, basically, of Adrian Perez. We don't see the why, but it looked something dissent-ish. Yeah. So that's where we are with the red card with 30 minutes in for Lou City. So what Danny Cruz said in those two sound bites was damning across the board for this crew.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, as Jarrett said, when you hear a coach say something or speak out like this, it is one side of the story. Now, there probably is basis for disgruntlement. I do not, sorry, Danny, believe that you did not say a single word to the fourth official or any official, by the way, because it doesn't just have to be directed at the
fourth. Took a vow of silence, Bart.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't buy it. That it took you 20 minutes before you started talking to the referees. I just don't. I'm sorry. I've been around this game long enough. The coaches start chirping before the damn game begins. Don't pee on my shoe and tell me it's raining. Okay.
You could have said piss. That's okay.
I already broke the filter. It's fine.
Yeah. Don't piss on my shoe and tell me it's raining.
Speaking
of Atlanta United, Garth Lagerway telling me doing that to us right now.
There you go.
There are obviously if a referee told a player to F off,
yes,
that is a problem because obviously a referee would not be a player would not be allowed to say that to a referee, and a referee should not be saying that to a player. If that is true, if that happened, which at this point is a he said, and not even a he said, it's just a he said.
Right.
Then if that did happen, then yes, that referee deserves to be punished in some way, shape, or form. Probably suspended, and reevaluated for their fit and competence for this level. Mm-hmm. That said, referees are going to have bad nights. Players are going to have bad nights. Coaches are going to have bad nights, right? You lost 2-1 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you feel some type of way about your loss, which is valid. You're allowed to be mad about your loss. Something that I do feel strongly about, though, is when you lose and you are, even if referees do not just give red cards, okay? They just don't. I'm sorry. I know this defeats this entire narrative he's bringing up. Players put themselves in positions to receive some sort of admonishment and punishment from referees. By word or act, they do this to themselves. I know this is shocking to everyone who's ever played.
Wait,
but
comma,
the players
what?
do this to themselves. And as much as I want to, I think, again, you need to investigate the report that a referee cursed at a player. That is uncalled for. Yeah. You should not be doing that. If that happened, this referee needs to be completely removed from USL competition for a period of time that they deem correct.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, when you lose a soccer game, it is most likely your own damn fault.
Go down a man in the 29th. Goal gets scored in the 82nd. Danny Cruz, by the way, did get a red card in the 66th minute. So he
Well, he only said one word to the referee the whole night. What are you talking about?
yeah. So he got a red in the 66.
Depends on what the word was.
Yes.
Well, and that's the other thing, Jarrett. Right? Like,
If
I
the
mean,
word
they're
was baguette,
yeah, right. You're 100% right, though. I mean, it depends on what was said. I mean, if you say nothing all game, but all of a sudden you start, your one word is an expletive or a slur, then yeah, you're gonna get a red card.
Yeah, you're quoting a menu at a French restaurant. Baguette.
Yeah.
There's your yellow, sir.
Yeah.
Then before we get into Miami and Cincinnati, I have incident number 3, and this comes from the college ranks. I don't know if you knew about this one, but this is women's soccer from the weekend, Rutgers and UMass. I don't know if you know about this one, but this
I saw the video.
Okay, so you saw the video. So you know what happened here. Here's the play-by-play call from the A10 match, Rutgers and UMass, once again, courtesy of our friends at ESPN Plus, among other places.
Mentioned earlier today as well in the first half that the half is one light today with Madison Richard, formerly Madison Tiernan. And oh boy, we've got fisticuffs on the far side as a couple of players are fighting here. And a big on the far side. And now a lot on the shoulders of this referee. All eyes on Stephanie McFarland. And this might take some figuring out. Here's a look at what happened. Clear foul committed on the far side by German. UMass trying to take it quickly, and it's Lamond and German who are getting into it. Oh boy, punches thrown in both directions, including an uppercut there, and oh boy, that is...
Yeah, so you
you don't
end up...
get enough uppercuts in sports fights.
No,
we don't.
What you ended up with was, for those that didn't see the video, you ended up with a foul from behind. Then you end up with a player for UMass returning to the one-on-one situation. So foul by Rutgers from behind. UMass player goes down. Another UMass player comes in to have a discussion with the Rutgers player. You end up with, pushing and shoving, and then the Rutgers player with a belly-to-belly suplex of the UMass player onto the ground there in the match. And so you end up with that kind of chaos after a foul. So player sticks up for UMass player, gets a belly-to-belly suplex for their troubles with punches and all this kind of stuff. What was the wildest situation that you've ever had that you had to take control of? I don't know if it rivaled that, but what was the wildest situation you've ever had?
No, I haven't had a judo over body throw like that in a game. But no, listen. You referee enough, you get fights. We had one this weekend in a U16, 15 or 16 game. I forget how old the dumbasses were, but you get into a sport and you've got people running around. Their heart rates are elevated and their awarenesses and senses are at high alert. People start fighting with each other.
Yes.
The worst I've seen is what?
I love that it's immediately where you went, like 15 or 16, whatever the dumbasses were. Correct. Because we were all 15 or 16.
Yeah.
We were all almost certainly dumbasses.
Uh-huh.
Listen, I do almost exclusively 15 to 19s. So which dumbassery do you want me to talk about? Because it happens on a weekly basis,
Look, the fact that anybody makes it to 20 in one piece and hasn't accidentally killed themselves is a minor miracle.
Yes.
And just should be celebrated.
We're lucky for the advances in medical treatments because some of these people are actively trying to hurt themselves by fighting with other people. I think I've had the benches clearing thing. I've had ADASL is bad because everyone has to stick up for their brother, and I'm like, no, your brother did a dumb thing. You don't have to stick up for him. He was being dumb. But you got to clear the benches for that because and then you got to sort through okay, are we carding every single person who left the bench because then we're not going to be playing a soccer game after this. Do you give a red card to every single player who was involved? So like in this incident, obviously the Rutgers player deserves a red card. I mean, a standing ovation, but also a red card. The UMass player who initiated that probably also should get a red card too, because they're the one who started that confrontation.
Yeah, I think you ended up with a red on each side by the time it was over.
Yeah, and then I don't think there was anyone else. I think this one was rather isolated to the two players. I don't think anyone else truly deserved any real misconduct. But yeah, this was. I've never seen this. I've never seen an uppercut and a sumo or judo throw. That was that was new.
Yeah, and that brings me to my overarching question here. With all of the different leagues and levels going on right now, and if I'm not mistaken, it's Major League Soccer, it is USL Championship, it's USL League One, it's USL Super League, it's college, both men's and women's, and a lot of different divisions going at it in the NCAA and NAIA pyramid. How much of a concern is it for you that there are not enough officials / qualified officials that are there to call all of these matches, which are great for the game? Do not misunderstand where I'm going here. It's fantastic that we have all of these different levels going on right now. You get pro all the way down the pyramid, fantastic cities, great universities, all of these different matchups. How much of a concern is it for you and your fellow officials that there aren't enough officials and enough qualified officials to call all of these matches that are going on, not just right now, but as the year goes on too, especially when you get into the high school game after the turn of the calendar? How much of a concern is it right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that we deal with on a weekly basis. People who want to be part of the game. Okay. How do I want to move into that complaint? Anyway, we need referees. That's just the end all be all of it, because the problem is you have a lot of the way the refereeing kind of works is you have players who are refereeing, right? So you have the 14 through 18-year-old kid whose mom and dad wants them to make some gas money because they're tired of, giving them $20, $40 now every time they leave the house. So you have that level of kid. Most of the time, now this has changed a little bit because I did referee with several college kids this past weekend, but a lot of times you go to college, well, you're not refereeing anymore. And to be quite honest, that is the perfect age to referee the younger, high-level youth games, right? If you're talking like the academy to like U15, those college kids are perfect because they are experienced enough at refereeing, fit enough to keep up with all the gameplay, but also they're still growing, but they need good games to continue to grow. And then you have older guys. Now, there are a number of us who have been refereeing for a good long while, but I'm an anomaly in the refereeing world where I started at 15 and I'm still doing it. Now, I even took a 6-year break because I was obviously playing.
So you're 22 is what you're saying.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I've been doing this for, in theory, 20 years. And that is a very, that is not something that is typical within our referee community. Because a lot of people stop after the age of 18 because they go on to college, and I get it. The last thing you want to do is wake up at 9 a.m. or be at a field at 9 a.m. on Saturday or Sunday when you're in college because you're probably hungover and you deserve to be so. That's what college is for. Yeah. But, I used to referee a lot in Athens, which I don't know if you know this, John, but there's a big university in Athens.
Yeah.
And
I've heard, yeah.
We didn't really have a lot of UGA kids refereeing. We had some grad students. One of the guys used to referee a lot with, he was an athletic training, some sort of medical something within sports grad student, and he and I worked together a lot. But we just didn't have a whole lot of UGA kids, if you will, refereeing in Athens. Now, this past weekend, I had some Georgia State kids refereeing here at Inter Atlanta. And and I've had some like tech or state kids referee with me before, but it's not a lot, especially in the city where we have, it feels like 27 universities and higher education facilities. We have a lot, right? And we just don't have that. So there is a gap in the, let's say 18 to 30-year-old age group where you are kind of peak fitness and also young enough maybe, to relate still to the kids and not feel like every single time someone talks to you, they're being disrespectful, as I say some of my older colleagues kind of get. We have a lot of people who we have a lot of needs for referees, but the reality also, John, is we have a lot of needs for everything in the soccer landscape. And this is where I'll get on my soapbox and say, if all you do is get on Twitter and complain about soccer, complain about US soccer, complain about pro rel, complain about pay for play, complain about this, complain about that, but all you're doing is complaining on Twitter, you're not helping anything. Where the hell are you? Because we need your help at every level of this game, be it signing up to be a referee. You get paid to do that. It's kind of fun. You get to stay in shape. You get paid. We need help with coaching. I'm sure some of the coaches in the chat will attest to that as well. We need help at every level. It can be as simple as just volunteering to be the field marshal for the day or volunteering to help cut grass. In Atlanta, we're lucky that we have a lot of the infrastructure is kind of taken care of for us. But there's a lot of places in this country, John, where I'm not joking. You got to have someone go out there and cut the grass. You got to go and you got to have parents to go out there and line the fields. You don't even have to be a parent. There's a local soccer club near you who probably needs help with something. Go help. It's not just referees. It's not just coaching. It's everything. And this sport in this country will only be good enough as it has the support from the normal people. Okay. If you want to complain about Cindy Parlow-Cohen and JT Batson and Matt Crocker and all these people who are dealing with a whole lot of stuff, if you want to deal about XYZ, ABC, ECNL, RPL, SAPL league, right? All these people complain about why we got all these many different leagues. You're not doing anything if all you're doing is getting online and complaining. And I'll be honest, a lot of these people don't even go to support the local soccer club, even though they rail against MLS and the, and they think pro rel is some sort of, silver bullet for everything that's ever been a problem. They don't even do as much to go support their local soccer team in support of the promotion relegation argument. So if you're in this chat and you feel like you need to do something, see if your local club needs a volunteer of some sort. But that said, also, John, there's some ways that we need to restructure, and this is the problem, how we look at the refereeing landscape, because a lot of clubs have to have a certified referee for these under 10 games.
Yeah.
I got to be real honest, John. You don't need me there. You know what they're doing at 9, 8, 9, 6, 4? You're herding cattle.
Yeah, you're right. It's a rugby scrum.
Yeah. And so what are we doing there? We're not calling fouls, because half the time it's not even a foul. Someone just falls over. But the fact that a lot of clubs need that because some parent gets pissy because their kid got hurt in a game, because heaven forbid they get hurt by going and play a contact sport. And now all of a sudden we got to have a certified referee there. And it's just like, this is a waste of my time. It's a waste of my skills. It's a waste of my money that I put in to, become a referee. And so, I think one of the solutions that we've seen in a lot of clubs is having junior referee programs where you have a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid who goes down and referees the U8 and below, because again, you're just there to point kids in the right direction, make sure they're scoring on the right goal on occasion and saying, that kind of stuff. If you want a referee to be in charge of a U8 game, then we're vastly off course.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing, is we need to reevaluate how do we get referees into the pool, and how do we use them wisely. But yeah, look, the reality is we are behind. The reason, okay. I've mentioned it twice already, so we're just going to talk about it. If you want to talk about promotion relegation, right, which I think whether or not you're for or against it, the reality that you need to understand is the infrastructure is not there. And by the way, it doesn't magically get there if you just say, hey, we have promotion relegation. All of a sudden, the next day, we don't have 700 newly qualified referees to take on all of the professional level matches within that pyramid. We don't suddenly have enough qualified coaches to not only just be at the top coaching the first teams, but also all the subsequent academy teams that you supposedly think are just going to also pop up out of nowhere because we suddenly make promotion relegation a reality. There is not enough support to make soccer work at a large scale right now in this country, because we need people who love the game to stay involved. We talk about we have the highest number of youth soccer participants in this country, more than any other country in the world, right? That is a stat that people throw out. Why can't our men's soccer team with their third choice U23 squad not make it farther in the Olympics? We got 1 million kids playing soccer every day. Or whatever the stat they want to say. We got more kids playing youth soccer than Morocco has people. Whatever stat they always like to throw out. Problem is we don't keep these kids past 16, 17, 18 years old. Maybe they play high school and they're done after that. They're not even involved in coaching. They're not involved in refereeing. Most of them aren't even playing in adult leagues. They're done. Until we fix that problem, your little pro-rel fantasy doesn't work.
All right.
Sorry.
That's why I wanted to, because of all of the different levels that we had discussions on this morning, the professional, the collegiate, and the second division. That was why I wanted to, with Super League. Sorry, with Super League.
Alex, I have to tell Alex though. I played a game. It was like U12 maybe. I was still playing it was a select game. Like we're talking academy level stuff. Played out in Monroe where they had like skydiving. You want to talk about the chaos, and just no soccer was being played at this point during this game because we had a skydiving crew come down. Wow. It was the funniest thing. It was amazing. But yeah, like at some point you're just like, soccer is not the most important thing going on at this point in time, and that's fine.
Yeah, especially at that age. I forgot to discuss with you the Joelinton hog tying incident, where it was called a clothesline on the air, but you had Joelinton buzzing by Neto, and basically just kind of does the professional tackle kind of thing and slows him down, kind of hog ties him and spins him a little bit, and folks were saying that should have been a red for unsporting behavior, and you got no red card from Joelinton on Neto. What was your thought on that one? As he thinks.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where I understand why there's not a red card.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of it's a continuum, right? Yeah. It's not it's not necessarily always a step on the ladder.
Uh-huh.
And I think you just you're also remembering that red cards and yellow cards are forms of managing a match.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I understand maybe why a red card wasn't given.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe should it have been.
Yeah, so
depends on the referee.
Yeah, it does. FC Cincinnati and Miami, I know that was going to be a part of the discussion quickly here as well. There are some parts of the Messi and Friends roster that are very, very physical in their application of the laws of the game. And for some strange reason, you could get you get 2 quick yellows, it turns into a red, and Cincinnati still can't take advantage of it. The last 4 times that they had a man advantage, they only scored 1 goal and didn't get a whole lot of points out of those last 4 matches. But you end up with another situation where Thomas Avalos ends up getting 2 yellow cards, quick succession, which he seems to be very good at, and go a man down.
Yeah. Again, 2 yellow cards is usually not the referee's fault. That's all I'm saying.
Strange.
I know we can talk about were both deserved, but most of the time they both were. Mm-hmm. And if you want extra grace after you've already been given a yellow card, I'm sorry, you've used up your grace.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so let's see. Avalos ends up getting a yellow in the 11th, and then he gets his second yellow 30 minutes later, and he's out in the 42nd. And so Yeah. So 30 minutes apart. Tomas Avalos once again gets
is that his second or third time this year?
I want to say that's his. I want to say third.
Because he had one like almost the first or second match week, I feel like. So he set his standard pretty early on in the season.
Why? Yes, he did. I mean, that's you're at that right back. So let's say match log. Let's see if let's check the match log before you get out of here. And let's see.
I do want to say though, John, I think if you're looking at referees and using that as some sort of outlet for your frustration about Miami or the LA teams getting what is very clearly preferential treatment from the league. I'm sorry, it just is. Same with like Manchester City, right? One, that was a penalty kick. Would that have made Luton a winner? No, or not Luton. Sorry, Ipswich a winner.
Yes.
No. There's no guarantee that had the referees, I don't know, been nicer to Cincinnati, I don't know, maybe they would have given a red card per se to a Miami player. Oh, wait. That this game would have played out differently, right? But using the referees as the conduit for your anger about the league allowing Miami and the LA teams to have some creative accounting, creative bookkeeping.
There you go.
Some great storytelling on their expense reports, if you will. That is not the place to put that. I was dealing with this situation the other day. There's a club that, in their defense, they're trying to give kids a chance to play. And that's where, as a referee, at this level, I have problems with being super high policing of it. But essentially, they had like 23 players on a match day roster. Well, you're only allowed 18.
I'm saying.
But now I got to cut, I'm like, hey, coach, you can't have I just checked in 20 players. You can't have 20 players. You got to cut 18. You got to cut 2 to get down to 18. And now I look like the bad guy because I'm telling this coach that he's got to pick 2 players who can't play. These teams that are trying to play outside of the rules need to be held accountable. But it's not the referee's job to hold Miami accountable because they have, give or take, 7 designated players. It's not the referee's job to hold LA Galaxy accountable because Marco Royce and Ricky Puig and all these other players who may or may not be at a designated player level are considered whatever they're considered.
High TAM.
High TAM.
Oh, by the way, Tomas Avalos, second time this year that he's done. It was June 16th against Philadelphia in a win for Messi and friends, and he was there for 84 minutes before it happened. So he spent twice as much time getting his red back in June than he did against Cincinnati, where it was.
What I think it was is maybe that early season one was where he didn't get anything called, and we were like, "What the hell happened here?"
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. It was whatever that nasty challenge from behind was.
It might have actually been the Atlanta match back in May where that happened.
I don't think it was that one.
Oh, well, then it could. Let's see. So let's look at his reds. Let's look at his yellows. So it was May 26th against Vancouver. It was May 30th against Inter Miami. Against Atlanta. Then it was against Charlotte on July 4th. So those are the other 3 instances where Tomas Avalos got yellow cards, but no second yellow card. So there you go. Your Tomas Avalos card update.
Anyway, yes. The LA and Miami teams get special treatment from the league. I'm not saying anything I think controversial.
I don't think you're in a minority opinion. No.
Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean the referees are giving them special treatment. I mean, I'll speak again to the Man City thing. The referee didn't give Man City a penalty. They had to use VAR to get back to it. But there was one in the 3rd minute on Haaland that probably also could have been a penalty kick if you really wanted to be super policing of it. And sometimes, there's just a lot of players running around at a very high speed, and sometimes things happen that you can't always get to. That's why we do have VAR for those clear and obvious errors. Not everything's clear and obvious. A lot of it is a lot of gray area.
Yes. So what's going on with Soccer for US POD?
Well, we were going to record last week, but then Poch wasn't signed. So we didn't want to record about just theorizing about it happening.
We think.
But I do have it on good authority that there will be a roster dropping this week for the U.S. men's national team. As you know, John, they do play games next weekend.
Yes.
So next Saturday, the 7th and the 10th.
Mhm.
So that roster will be coming out this week. So we'll be recording that kind of reaction episode. We know that and blanking on the name of the U20 coach now is going to be Mikey Varas. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
The Mikey Varas will be coaching the team during the September window, which is probably going to happen regardless, just because as much as I don't like wasting a window, you weren't likely to get a coach in place by the September window ready to physically coach the team.
Right.
That said, Todd, pay up. Do a service to your country.
Pay the man.
Pay him.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yes, Bowley Clear Lake, get it figured out.
Yeah.
As always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you on Monday to go wandering through the world of what it's like to have cards in your pocket and a whistle around your neck and what you think about certain calls and things like that, and national team news and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, looking forward to seeing the roster drop with Mikey Varas and what it's going to look like as they get ready for Canada and the other matchup that's attached next week in New Zealand. So yeah, it'll be a hoot to see how it looks, and you will discuss as you always do. Thanks as always, my friend, and we will catch up with you soon. Unless, of course, I put out the bat signal and go, "Oh my God, I need you to come in on an emergency basis because this happened."
I mean, I feel like we're just waiting for that news to happen that Poch is signed. You know,
yeah.
I think the thing is the reporting is done. They're like, well, we just gotta wait for them and Chelsea to get it figured out, and then once that happens, we're good.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out, Todd. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to say this out loud.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about Todd or Todd Bowley, and like specific to this, we're like, pay the man, Todd, get it done, Todd. I just keep going back to the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation scene.
Absolutely.
Why is the carpet all wet, Todd? I don't know, Margot. Anyway.
So you're saying I need to get that drop, is what you're saying?
Maybe.
Let's say, why is the carpet wet, Todd? All right. So yeah, anything involving Chelsea. Sorry, Michael Head.
Yeah.
Will be why is the carpet wet, Todd?
Yeah.
All right. Let me go through all the news of the day before we get out of here at 11:05. Thanks as always, my friend.
All right. Cheers, y'all.
All right. That's Bart. He's going to drink coffee and he's out the door. So it's always great to catch up with Bart. All right. News of the day and other stuff that we need to get into about people. And this was the other thing. Man, we could have gone forever with Bart. So speaking of John Herdman and the Canadian men's national team, now it appears that there is a discussion that possibly, and this is from Joshua Clokey, now you have yet another discussion that is on the board. And so Joshua Clokey, and it's in an article about the drone scandal and how we got here. About halfway down the article, Joshua Clokey over at the Athletic/NY Times. Multiple sources speaking anonymously to protect relationships told the Athletic that ahead of the July 10 first leg of the Canadian Championship semifinal between Toronto FC and the Canadian Premier League's Forge FC, a drone was spotted above Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton during a Forge training session. One person familiar with the incidents, who will remain anonymous to protect relationships, told the Athletic that Forge made Canada Soccer aware of possible drone usage, but the team did not lodge an official complaint. It is not clear who is responsible for this drone, which was spotted before the first reported drone incident at the Olympics on July 19. Quote, over the last few weeks, we've been made aware of speculation regarding this type of activity. That information has been forwarded to the independent third-party investigator who is leading the external review, said Paulo Senra, Chief Communications Officer for Canada Soccer. A disciplinary process for this tournament is in place to adjudicate and sanction violations of the Canada Soccer Code of Conduct or tournament regulations if that is required. Obviously, Forge and Toronto FC declined to comment to Clokey. Forge would go on to win the first leg 2-1. Second leg of the semifinal is on August 27. In addition, Canada Soccer will eventually release the findings of the independent review. One more lingering question from Clokey that the review could attempt to answer is how potentially systemic, in quotation marks, drone usage became prevalent within Canada soccer, particularly on the men's side, and what should change to ensure it does not happen again. So, just when you thought we weren't going to hear any more about drones and usage in Canada, pray tell, Joshua Clokey from the Athletic /NY Times. And I love how now everything from the Athletic has an NY Times URL. So it appears that Canada Soccer will have to be looking into perhaps yet another incident involving a drone shooting video of Forge FC's practice, which, if it was to benefit Toronto FC, did them no good because they lost the first leg of that particular section of the Can Champ. So even if this drone can be tied to Toronto FC, the information that was pulled from the footage that the drone allegedly shot, or the alleged footage that the alleged drone allegedly shot, was translated poorly and did not work for Toronto FC. So there's that to hang on to with John Herdman. Also on the board, we mentioned Lyon. And we mentioned Lyon because of John Textor and because of everything that he is going through right now, where he is trying to make sure that he can dispose of his holdings in Crystal Palace so he can then turn around and buy Everton. So you've got that to pay attention to. But our friends at World Soccer Talk are letting us know that John Textor is not the most, well, when it comes to Lyon, let's put it this way. John Textor right now and his situation at Lyon is not all that great. He's nearing the agreement on the Everton takeover. And then L'Equipe came out with a story stating that Textor was scrambling to raise $112 million through player sales to comply with FFP, if you want to call it that, financial regulations from the French soccer regulatory body, the DNCG. Textor refuted the report, telling Reuters, "We do not have sales targets and we are not required to sell 100 million euro of players, as there may be other ways to bring in revenues to maintain financial sustainability. Every company in France has the same challenge. At the end of the year, negative equity has to be restored. It's no different in football. If it's a slow transfer window, then we hold players until the next window. It's as simple as that." Lyon, investing in folks like Abner and Niakate, wanted to try and have a competitive squad in Ligue 1. They suffered a 3-0 loss against Rennes in the first match, and then they lost 2-0 at home to Monaco on Saturday. Key players that could help Lyon boost their revenue, Ryan Cherky is one of them. Cherky declined a proposal from Fulham that would have brought $22 million into Lyon. So is John Textor in financial trouble? Is he? Because the L'Equipe story basically said that dude needed to have every player on the market to try and work out that 112 million pound hole. Textor, of course, refuted it, as we said. So we don't quite know. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. But yeah, you end up with L'Equipe saying he's got to put everybody on the market. Textor's like, nah, I don't. So truth might be somewhere in the middle, but we'll find out. Also involving players and locations and where folks like to go and where they don't. I mentioned Lutz Pfannenstiel and what he was saying about locations for players coming to America. And he was not too happy about folks that were kind of skipping St. Louis and heading to other places. So he was not a fan of, let me see if I can spell Pfannenstiel. I-E-L. I want to get my quotes right. But yeah, he was not a happy man, saying that European stars that go to places like Messi and friends to go hang out with him or go to Los Angeles, they're here to vacation. That goes back to the old MLS 1.0 where you're bringing in the high-priced talent for cups of coffee and what have you. City got 6 new players, 5 through the transfer market, 1 through a trade. Pfannenstiel said we wanted to do it. We wanted to improve. Club only brought in 2 players last summer, and he admits that they had to make a lot of moves with injuries and such. Strategic signings with an eye on 25, like Hartel, Tukert, Bashir, Henry Kessler, Giannis Horn. Obviously, the challenge from Martina Alcheva at World Soccer Talk, challenge facing the City Park side remains steep, having to win a lot of games to get into the playoffs in the West. While discussing the challenges of building a competitive squad, Pfannenstiel says, I'm going to be blunt here. If a player wants to play in MLS but only wants to play in LA, Miami, and New York, then they're just here for a holiday, end quote. Obviously, St. Louis. You get to see St. Louis as you're flying to Los Angeles from New York. Kind of get to wave at City Park on the way by. Of course, the references, according to Alcheva, said it could be a dig about Marco Royce. St. Louis apparently did pursue Marco Royce. Royce ended up at LAG. Tommy Scoops basically said Marco Royce and his wife didn't love St. Louis. Bogert said that all caps was a distant third in the midfielders' considerations for a home in Major League Soccer. So we have drones with John Herdman, possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps, being investigated. And so you've got that to look at. When you thought you were done and you're not, once again, no real surprise. Well, obviously, we'll catch up with Christian Jack before the matchup against Canada with the United States. We'll catch up with Christian Jack before the matchup, and we'll find out how life is up north. So gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all that kind of stuff. Let's get into that. Today, with your Soccer on TV, if I can click the right day, and I'll let you know what the schedule is. Should be pretty light except for possibly college. ESPN Deportes has La Liga at 3:30, Villarreal and Celta de Vigo, Goal TV. If you don't have Goal TV, you can pick that up at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. You can catch up with our buddy Nino Torres and the matches that he calls. Uruguay Primera at 7, Peru Primera at 9. Universo has Liga MX Femenil for their Monday Night Football, Guadalajara and Cruz Azul at 11 o'clock. Union 2 and Crew 2 is at 6 on Apple TV and MLS Season Pass. ESPN Plus sells carpets probably. Villarreal, Celta Vigo, La Liga 2, Cartagena and Zaragoza is at 1. Golazo Network has a doubleheader in Serie A. Cagliari and Como at 12:30. Hellas Verona, Juve at 2:45. Paramount Plus simulcasting Serie A and adding the Argentina Primera to that. Barraca Central Villa Sarsfield at 3. Estudiantes and Boca Juniors is at 8. So that's your what to watch, how to watch it, and where to watch it. The gossip in and of itself, Liverpool are planning for life after Alisson with what looks like a £30 million deal for Georgian keeper Georgi Mamardashvili at Valencia. So that will be a way of looking to the future for Liverpool as they continue to go forward under Arne Slot. Let's see. Victor Osimhen is not a package to be shipped away, according to his agent, as the agent dismisses a link to Saudi Arabia and playing there. Chelsea was looking to find a way to add Osimhen to the squad. Pay the man, Todd. Lukaku to Napoli for $25 million has opened the door for Chelsea to try to chase after Osimhen. Osimhen has rejected a transfer to Saudi Arabia. Financial package required to sign him is supposed to be pretty big. Long-term target for Chelsea as far back as November, 48 goals in all comps his last 2 campaigns. Raheem Sterling apparently is being looked at by Aston Villa still. Because remember, with all of the ins, you got to have outs. We mentioned Matt O'Reilly to Brighton, $25 million on a 5-year deal. Ferdy Kadiolu could soon follow, given permission from Fenerbahce to travel to Brighton on Friday. So it appears that Chelsea could swap Raheem Sterling for Jadon Sancho. That's what Will Unwin is saying at The Guardian, by the way. The Blues have a bloated squad sentence after mentioning Raheem Sterling. But the recruitment team have a cunning 1-in and 1-out policy now. So the £500,000 per week wage demands on Osimhen make it look tricky. So the alternative looks like it could be Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Sorry to all of our resident Evertonian fans. Osimhen also a target for Al-Akhli, but remember his agent's like, nope, not doing it. Looked like Eddie Nketiah was heading to Forest. Crystal Palace have entered the race. Looks like Forest and Nketiah can't come up with a deal. Knockback for Forest has led them to put in another bid for Santi Jimenez. Dutch club rejected an opening offer last week, but Nuno wants some more firepower, and it looks like it could be in the range of $30 million. Manchester City are thinking long-term and have identified Copenhagen teenage striker Ori Oskarsson as an understudy to Haaland, valued at €20 million at 19 years old. Potential departure on the cards as City looks like they might be selling Mateus Nunes, especially with the addition of Ilkay Gundogan. Feyenoord keeper Justin Bilo was an emotional figure after the 1-1 draw. Looks like he's heading to Southampton. And we mentioned Matt O'Reilly and his now signing with Brighton as of 10 o'clock this morning. So that's what you're staring at with the gossip, rumor, and innuendo, at least so far. Let me double check all of my folks here. Osimhen wants to stay in Europe, and Nketiah set to join Crystal Palace, according to Ben Jacobs from 40 minutes ago. Gabriel Heinze, as Cesar Luis Merlo is reporting, is not going to be the new coach at Argentinos Juniors. El Gringo thanked the club for its interest, but told them for now he wants to continue living in Madrid. So he is not going to be the coach for Argentinos Juniors going forward, at least not right now anyway. Kurt Zuma set to sign with a Saudi side. Jaden Anthony undergoing a Burnley medical. James Rodriguez to Rayo Vallecano. That happened this morning early in the show as well. Sterling offered to Aston Villa, but it's not expected to develop due to the overall cost of the deal, once again, according to Jacobs. Chelsea will present him with offers, but he's not speaking directly to anyone yet. Jimenez, confirmed by Jacobs, $30 million from Nottingham Forest. And Liverpool, it's a 30 plus 5 with Valencia for Mamardashvili, 6-year deal. Loaned back to Valencia this year, joining Liverpool in 25. Alisson stays as the number 1, which was always the plan. Let's see. Am I missing anybody else this morning? Sven-Goran Eriksson passed at the age of 76. That's a big loss for the sport and his valiant fight with cancer. I hate cancer, and I'm not the only one who will say it. There's video out of Everton players being abused at a London train station over the weekend. Everton, furious with players after they were demolished 4-0 by Spurs in North London, have now lost both Premier League matches this year, giving out 7 without scoring. At Euston Station, supporters were filmed confronting the players as they boarded the train. Neil Maupay found himself taking a volley of vitriolic abuse. This is from our friends at TalkSport. As the players ran the gauntlet to get on the carriages, the striker appeared to react to the shouts of F off from one particular supporter. Reposting the video on social media, Maupay said, "Imagine another job where it's normalized to get abuse like this. Hanging around at a train station to scream at men who are trying their best." Everton rocked bottom after the first 2 matches. Sean Dyche says, "It's a strange situation here. We kind of built something, and then we have to go down the hill and build it again." And so Texter still confident about a takeover, and that's where Toffee's facing Doncaster in EFL Cup on Tuesday before Bournemouth Saturday at Goodison in Premier League play. So Texter revealed how he failed in an attempt to take majority control at Selhurst Park, now having turned his attention to Everton. Strong indications from qualified buyers to complete a sale of his Palace shares. So that's from our friends at TalkSport, and apparently the video is out about like Neil Maupay and others getting yelled at. Looks like Burnley might be set for a triple deal, and McTominay might be heading outside of the Premier League. Kurt Zuma, it's Al Oraba having a medical for that. We mentioned Eddie Nketiah, mentioned triple deal. Hannibal Mabry, Jeremy Sarmiento, Jaden Anthony, all believed to be at Turf Moor for medicals ahead of a move to the Championship club. Anthony joining for Bournemouth on a loan with a £10 million obligation to buy. Scott Parker, Scotty Tuhati, the head coach at Burnley, looking for incomings after seeing the likes of Odebear, Sander Berge, and Dara O'Shea leave in recent days. So there's that activity. Like I said, I'm just buzzing through everything that I'm staring at, and we will catch up. Give Me Sports says Brentford's Ivan Toney needs to give a final answer on whether he's prepared to join Al Ahly on Monday. Danny Rust and Ben Jacobs over at GMS. And let's see. Statement from Sven-Goran Eriksson's children, Lena and Johan. Our father fell asleep peacefully in his home at Bjorkafors outside Sunne this morning. He has for a long time fought bravely with his illness, but now it came to an end. So Sven-Goran Eriksson, that's the first paragraph, at the age of 76. Dad told us at the beginning of this year about his serious illness, received an amazing response from friends and football fans around Europe. He was invited to several football teams in England, Italy, Portugal, and Sweden. They shared their love for football and for Dad. It was unforgettable for both him and us. He expressed his appreciation and joy and stated that such beautiful words are usually only uttered when someone has died. Quote, "I get to hear it while I'm alive, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. The heart beats twice and the tears come. I've had the best job in the world, and I was happy every day for long periods. It's been fantastic." His children continued, "We've shared his gratitude and got to experience the wonderful meetings between him, football, and all his friends. We thank everyone for these positive memories and your support during his illness. We hope that you'll remember Svenis as the good and positive person he always was, both in public and at home with us." And the one thing that I will always remember is the recent conversations with Sven-Goran Eriksson where he's mentioning just smiling. And it's just smile. Something as simple as that to get you through your day. Don't be sorry. Smile. That's what Sven-Goran Eriksson, a positive guy trying to do everything he could do. Said he had a good life in the Amazon Prime documentary, which now I'm probably going to have to go watch. Eriksson says he's had a good life telling viewers, don't be sorry, smile before saying thank you for everything. Coaches, players, the crowds, it's been fantastic. First foreign coach to manage England led the side to quarterfinals of the 02 and 06 World Cups and the 04 Euros. So Sven-Goran Eriksson leaves this at the age of 76. Tomorrow, we'll go over everything else in Major League Soccer, everything else that's going on around the planet, catch up with the news of the day. Obviously, thanks to Bart for dropping by for extended coverage on a Monday because there was a lot to talk about. There was a lot to talk about. And, I got to say hi to everybody before we go. So let's see. So who is here this morning? And I know that there were a lot of you that were getting into discussions about Atlanta United, and I'm thankful that you guys do that every day. Morning, Alex. Morning, Michael. Morning, Harry. Morning, Hutch. Morning, Emilio. And let's see. Morning, Alex. We're getting into the handball discussion. Let's see. Morning, Wiley. Like I said, I'm trying, and if I miss somebody, I am profoundly sorry. Let's see. Morning to me as I'm going back and forth. Morning, four card. Yeah, Michael. Yeah, this absolutely is true. Michael says the Athletics gotten very sly on their annual renewal since the takeover by the New York Times. They absolutely have. And I did it on multiple email addresses. And so I try to log into the app with the email address that's attached to the subscription, that's no longer attached to the subscription. And they're like, go ahead and subscribe. And I'm like, no, switch my email address. And they won't let me do it on the app. So fun with the Athletic now that they're with the New York Times. Apparently the EPL, I haven't heard of any charter flights, four-card. I haven't heard of any charter flights in the EPL. They take like trains and things. But at the same time, Manchester City. Why does Manchester City and charter flights stick in my head? I would have thought that they did. Even if it's like a 45-minute hop flight. I've seen the pictures from inside Manchester City planes. And four-card, Nikita DeForest, smart. All right, so we are way the ish over, and I apologize for that. But there's always stuff to talk about, and we always end up having more stuff to talk about at the end of things. But yeah, we'll be back in less than 22, and we'll go over everything that happened in MLS yesterday, over the weekend. We'll get you ready for the weekend. Any other guests that pop in on your Tuesday? Oh, tomorrow we will have Carolina Corps' Roy Lassiter. Maddie's going to catch up with Coach Lassiter, and that will be leadoff tomorrow because Carolina Corps and Atlanta United 2s go out to Carolina Wednesday night, kick 7:33 on the network. So pregame is at 7. We'll catch up with Steve Cook, and we'll get you ready for the matchup with Carolina Corps and Atlanta United 2. Big matchup as both teams are trying to climb into the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. So Carolina Corps head coach Roy Lassiter will be on the network batting leadoff. Maddie's going to catch up with him, and that'll be our leadoff tomorrow as we get you ready for everything else going on around the planet. So for everybody here, for Jarrett, for Nick, for Maddie, for me, I'm just John, for Jason as well. Thanks for dropping by here on a Monday, and we will catch up with you guys in a little less than 22. And I didn't even get to do an opening kickoff. That's how fast we were flying this morning. So everybody, be safe, be well, and we will catch up with you tomorrow in a little less than 22. Since it is the end of the show, that means I get to try and whistle us out because I can still never find the Gary Shandling instrumental. Joe Walsh singing, got that. I just need the instrumental. See you tomorrow.